Say welcome back to the To Be Fair Show. I am your host Johnny P,
Over here, Rell.
It's Q.
and we back. Before we get into it, I want to say follow us on IG at the To Be Fair Show,
Yes,
Facebook, TikTok, YouTube at the To Be Fair Show. Check out the pre-show live 1 p.m. every
Yep.
Sunday. Tap in, send music suggestions, throw us some memes. We gonna fuck with you. Let us know what y'all think below.
Topics, give us some topics, some
All
things
that.
y'all want to hear.
Yep.
All that. But we back.
Mhm.
We got a few little, joints lined up.
I don't mind popping it off with my piece. Consistent new buzzword that I have been hearing a lot is victim mentality.
Mm.
And like at times I have a dual feeling about it because of at times there is a lot of quote unquote victim mentality that I do see play itself out. And it's to the detriment of a lot of different communities. But there's also this thing where now I'm also starting to see, on the other hand, it being used and weaponized in a way where people who don't want to assume accountability
Mm.
use the word victim or victimhood or victim mentality to justify whatever their wrongs are. So I guess before I go too deep into it, I'd love to kind of get y'all, just your surface opinions on what's your take on like this current new word of victim mentality, victimhood. We can go in general, black community, however y'all want to unpack it.
I got a few. I mean, I'll start with when I hear the word like victim mentality. It's I mean, there are actual victims.
Mm.
Victim mentality, I think, is something separate. Because I mean, if you could be a victim and not have victim mentality, there's a lot of people that have been through stuff that don't necessarily have the defeatist mindset.
Mm.
There's a lot of people who are conquerors, especially you see this now. It's one thing that get on my nerves. There's a lot of like oppressors, abusers, and shit that have victim mentality.
Mm.
Like you hear stuff like reverse racism, and it's stuff where they're taking a lot of the cues from our struggle and kind of flipping it, like you say, and we're kind of weaponizing it to where you hear like a lot of people talking about like they're the oppressed people, and just because people don't necessarily agree with them. So I think it's a mentality. You don't ever want to, there's certain reverence you want to have for actual victims, the shit that people actually went through. But when you talk about mentality, it's something separate, and there are hindrances, that if you always look at yourself as a victim, there's only so much like progress, or that the mentality holds you back. But I don't want to disrespect actual victims.
Yeah.
I also want to call out non-victims who are like weaponizing the victim mentality and tactics to kind of advance, and sometimes it's to dodge certain accountability, because they'll say, well, such and such, a lot of I'll say it, Republicans, they'll talk about like they're oppressed, and motherfuckers are hating on them and stuff. When it's no, it's just some bad balance. Something's been so out of skew for so long, we got to come back, and that sway and oppression, it's just shit turning back the way it should be. So that's just my initial thoughts on it. But we can unpack it a little bit.
Yeah, I think when and that was actually a great point that you made. Something to put up at the forefront is the fact that there are actual victims, and to separate the victim mentality from victims. It's like you say, you don't necessarily have to have the victim mentality. But the one thing that when I heard of it initially, not just just piggybacking on what you said, what I got from what I thought of when I heard it is more like black community, the black community thing, where I think that when I've heard it being used is pretty much the idea of people using excuses to dodge accountability, consistently using excuses to dodge accountability. And that's kind of where, when I hear it, that's what I think of. It's like, what I mean? Even if it's not even within like the black community, if you can look at relationship wise, it could be in relationships where, one person is always the victim. And if you're always the victim, then you always feel like someone's doing something to you and you're never treated the same, but it could literally just be you. And I think that the big thing is everybody should sit and should analyze self and sit with self to see if you have some of these characteristics, or you make sure that you're not in this victim mentality, because it frauds or it halts progression. It makes you very stagnant. It doesn't do you any justice. You know what I mean? As far as you trying to progress, that
I got
mentality.
I guess I want to kind of like build towards it because I think like we've now kind of like touched on it inside like a general scope, and we've kind of like lined out how we feel about it. Do you think that victim mentality it plays a huge part into the black community and where the black community is at current day?
I'll answer that, but I got one question I want to clarify with you about when you said like the dodging accountability, the
Mhm.
victim mentality. It's letting like the victims dodge accountability, or the people actually
When all right, so
like who's actually
got you. The other side of what I went to. No, I think that there is a bunch of times in which I've also seen inside like conversations, debates, X, Y, and Z. This be inside the political realm and like relationship, whatever. Where a person could be doing X, Y, and Z negative, but instead of like actually taking accountability to what they did, they say stop playing the victim to the person, even though what they did was wrong.
So the oppressor
Yes,
is using victim
Yeah.
mentality to not.
yeah, I've seen it levied inside both ways.
Okay, because when initially, because I feel like it's something where if used properly, everybody could get out of accountability. To where the
Right,
oppressor,
but and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, on
that's
both
why I said I
sides.
want to
Yeah.
make sure I paint it both ways I've seen it used.
okay,
And I would want to kind of like unpack both sides of it.
yeah. So
And that's
what
why I
you
wanted
said,
to. That's why I was going to the black community side first, where speaking directly to what impacts us. Do y'all think that victimhood, the victim mentality, has been to the detriment of the progression of black people?
I mean, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, not like to the point where we want to let that other side off the hook, but as a point of like us, like, I mean, you get hit in the mouth, motherfucker knock you down playing football. You can sit there and oh, it hurt, like yeah, we know it hurts. Like, of course, you got knocked on your ass, but
Right.
like, at what point are you gonna get up off your ass and
Hit the
continue? Because I
gym.
mean, there is the victim mentality of what happened to you, but then it's also your reaction, and how you respond to it, and that matters damn near more than like what actually happened to you. How you play your cards. Like in poker, how you play your cards is almost more important than the
What
actual
cards you
cards
got?
that you
Yeah.
dealt. So it's you got to look at that side. It's okay, you got dealt a shitty hand, but how you gonna make it twerk? At what point do you start even focusing on that? At some point you got to start
Hopefully sooner
playing
than
your
later.
fucking hand.
Yeah, and I say, I agree. I say, hopefully, like you say, hopefully you realize it sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think that you hear people, the white man, the white man, the white man. We've heard that like our entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And a lot of it's true.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that and see, that's the thing is, two things can be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There could be, you know what I mean, the systematic oppression. All of there. That's not that is not true. That the system is not built that way. I'm not trying to debunk that because that is a fact. But there's also a point to where it's like, okay, so what am I going to do about it? Am I going to just wallow in it, or am I going to? Okay, so this is the case. So I need to prep myself to, you know what I mean, to beat the odds on it. You know what I mean? And it's like I see a problem. I mean, because you could have the victim mentality about anything. You can have the victim mentality about, oh, she gave me, the teacher didn't like me. So okay, but what are your grades though? Like, what are you doing your homework? Are you actually applying yourself? You know what I mean? You can play the victim in anything. In anything. That's like old girl who was looking at on the live show.
Mm-hmm.
Now you sitting here pregnant by another man, baby, living in this man's house, and then you want to try to play victim because he ain't spending time with you.
He ain't
So I've been trying to spend time with you, but you live in it. So what did you think?
But what about that 6-year-old?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what about that? Yeah.
Come on now, like I mean, it's so many ways people play the victim, and I've even seen where people use like religion, and they'll play the victim based in like behind a religious how would I say, like pretense.
Pretext. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't.
So like what I'll say this is like where people will be like waiting for God to such and such. You know what I mean? You can actually make yourself a victim. You know what I mean? In that space as well.
Well, I think that's something we kind of touched on last week. That's where a lot of like at least when I look at like the religion and the part that I get turned off, are the people that like take advantage of like that aspect of like the victimized thing. So it's the white man, but God can, come and you can get this, money, and when they like are financially benefiting off of, that mindset or that us being kind of trapped in that cycle. It's kind of like a mental, like a mindset cycle to where it kind of perpetuates itself. Hopelessness begets hopelessness.
Yeah,
and it always it continues to just cycle until there's some kind of like awareness, to break the cycle.
yeah.
But a lot of like the systems and stuff in our community, media, all of that stuff is designed to continually perpetuate
And then it's,
cycle.
I think that you are also the things that you intake, just like the food you eat, the things that you can sit there and play victim, but what are you putting in yourself all the time?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? What are you putting in yourself all the time? I feel like, bro, if you've been a victim your whole life, it's your fault. At this point, if you've been a victim your whole life, you need to look at yourself.
Yeah.
Analyze the decisions that you're making, because I guarantee you that first off, you're the only common thing in each of these scenarios. You're the only common thing.
It just depends. If you're 30 and you've always been the victim.
Yeah, no, I ain't talking about
18.
Yeah. 20. You know, our audience ain't gonna be young people. You know what I mean? So, or I ain't gonna say. Hopefully, it will be, because then, you know what I mean. We can try to, do our thing to help build up some stronger men and well versed women. But
I want to touch on something you just said right there, Jeremy.
What's up?
Well, you was just saying if you're always the victim, pretty much that you need to look at yourself.
Yeah.
I think that goes like individually goes also to community wise and even further, like in any type of aspect, and not just speaking about the Black community, even though that was the original question, like that just kind of came up a second ago. I think like not just speaking to the Black community, just on an individual basis. That victim mentality period is something that's going to hold you back. If you're constantly in your head looking at the fact that you're a victim and you never learn how to conquer that. Because honestly, like if you're stuck in victimhood, like, or say like you're looking for forgiveness from, like you want somebody to ask you to forgive them because they're supposed to do that and you never forgiven them yourself or whatever. Like I was just talking to bro about this outside. Like if you never forgiven somebody, it's really hurting you because they're always on your mind. You're always constantly thinking of this, and that's holding you back from actually focusing. Yeah, it's still in your focus.
They still improperly in your mind. Like another thing, like I'm good on that too. That's a good thing as far as taking it further. As far as like a lot of these concepts, and we're talking about it from Black man perspective, from Black community perspective. That's where we come from. But like this stuff applied to like, man, you can even take it to like the LGBT community. Or any different communities to where like you can only sit and blame and complain about like your situation and where you at for so long before it just becomes redundant, and then you have to actually like step out and start
doing
stuff.
Damn. I don't want to go down there because you said one of them that can send it left, but
it's a parallel. We ain't got to.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But yeah, I guess this nigga knew it. But no, I guess so. One, I think for me, there's a couple pieces of clarity that I always want to kind of hit on. Where one, I think that as the history of Black people in America deals with overcoming adversity. That is the history of it.
Facts.
If you think that that's not going to happen, you're sadly mistaken. It's just a part of the plight of what it means to be Black. It's going to come in different shapes, forms, X, Y, and Z, but adversity is a piece of the build. If you're looking to find this fantasy world in which there's going to be no struggle, I'm sorry. That's not really going to happen. So to me, when it comes down to like the victim mentality, the victimhood, in general, how I look at it is that as Black people, like we can either spend our time diagnosing the problem or finding the solutions. I think that we've always been most successful when we just started finding the solutions.
Yeah.
Because the problems are always going to be there. There's always going to be a certain level of ingrained insert buzzword across the board. Yeah, there's always going to be a bunch of isms that you can kind of like fall back on. But at the end of the day, as three black men right here, a black woman and a black man behind the camera, we all understand that it comes down to what you end up getting done at the end of the day. Nobody's going to lean on your excuses. It's not really going to make too much of a difference. It's going to be like, oh, those are your circumstances. Oh, that's sad. But either you let that shit break you or that turn into your superpower. And I think that ends up being one of those things that as black people, we kind of have to make sure that we take in consideration is the fact that all the problems have been diagnosed for us. Solution based. We have to work on like our problem solving ability because if not, the cycle going to continue. It's going to be a continual, perpetual cycle.
Let me add that because it's one of the like gifts and curses of being in a capitalism based, economy, society. It's results based. At the end of the day, you put up what you put up, and there could be reasons why you only put up so much. But like we know what makes this country run, what makes the world run is money, and it's like you can get it or you could not get it, but
Your life
it's results based, and you can be poor and there could be all the reasons in the world why black people live in poverty, but at the end of the day, it's still poverty. And this what's going to come from it is going to come from it.
And I think that one thing that I would like to say, as black people in general, not to get swept up in, because you touched on the capitalism space of it. And I think it's important not to get swept up in the corporate monetization of victimhood, because that's a huge thing right now.
What you mean by that exactly?
We could like there is power in whether we want to go like the big major organizations from Pepsi, for example.
Are you talking about
them peddling their commercials?
Peddlers,
like you can go like there's an argument for like
the pandas,
right? So it's now cool because of as well. We get caught up in the idea of social currency, and so right now, and I call it the oppression Olympics. You can get mad social currency off that. Yeah. You can get all the likes, the pats on the backs, and that can make you feel good. But at the end of the day, you're still left with a learned helplessness.
You can't find no car with social currency.
Yeah,
you can't buy no house with social currency.
And again,
they make you feel good. And that's the thing about like the China shit, where like they set you up to where you have to follow this rigid like structure socially, and because they have the social credit score and shit. But like at the end of the day, that has nothing to do. Like you still have to make money over there. Now they can make it harder for you based off like that. So, and that's why like I don't want to get away from like a capitalistic society to where you could be judged based off, because it's a double-edged sword. But like you say, you don't want to get caught up in like just letting them pander to you and all of that. You have to, get
keeping you feeling like you're not, like you can't do.
Right.
Again, like the power is in the solution. And just to reiterate the point, because I don't want it to get misconstrued, there's struggle. There's a specific struggle for being a black person in America. A black man and black woman, we both have even separate struggles, but are specific to ourselves in general. So don't misconstrue this to say like there are no oppressive powers that go against or go towards. But end of the day, still got to get it done.
The funny thing is what it just made me think of, and I agree with everything that's being said. What it made me think of is that like people will use an excuse, and a lot of people don't understand that just because it's valid doesn't make it not an excuse. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can tell a truth and it be an excuse, and it still be the truth.
Reason, but it's still an excuse.
It's still an excuse, though. It doesn't mean that doesn't change anything. It made me think when I was in the military, right? They get you out of that shit. Well, it got me out of it really quick. Because first off, I don't really like to explain. I ain't the type person where if it happened, then just give me the consequence and then I'll move from there. I don't want to sit here and have to explain this, because the thing is, they don't care what your explanation or your excuse is. You're still getting the same consequence, whether it was a valid excuse or something you made up, or it doesn't matter. Yeah. So like it got to a point to where I learned no excuse first, son. No excuse. No reason to explain it because you don't care. You know what I mean? You don't care. The result is going to be the result, and I'm going to have to face this regardless. So I just stopped. You know what I mean? No excuse for everything, and they actually respect it. They actually respect it. It's like, you know what I mean? I learned that within the first year. Like within the first year, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to keep on trying to tell you this story, whether I made it up and it sound good or whether it really happened.
Just give me my punishment.
Just give me what I'm going to take
your chin up, and we're gonna get past it. And they respect that more.
Yeah.
I want to, before we transition into the next topic, I want to get to this point about like what you're saying. It comes down to like identity politics. You could be a victim, and like you say, what happened to black people happened to black people. There's no denying that, but a lot of it go down to like identity, what you identify with. If you identify like as a victim, you could be all these other things, but if you only identify as a victim, that's gonna hold you to only that one reality of being a victim. So you like I said earlier, I don't want to disrespect victims. I want to hold victims to a different reverence, but it's about mentality. You can be a victim and have a conqueror mindset. And come in and all that. And that's what I don't want, because a lot of what the politics, and especially like the Democrat, Republican, a lot of the media today, they try to pigeonhole us into identifying. Well, it's all kind of identities. So all of these identities and things they want you to identify with, it pigeonholes you into a certain place that fits into their puzzle and their scheme.
Right.
So you got. I mean, people need to identify individually. I might be this, but I don't necessarily. I'm not voting because I identified it or what works for me. You have to think for yourself. You can't just be pigeonholed based on all of these social media shit nowadays and just the world.
I had a question real quick, just while we there.
I know that you said it.
Do y'all believe, like, is a belief, and I had to write this down just because I had to get it right, is a belief in a white supremacy system a perpetuation of black victim mentality?
Is the belief of
in a white supremacy system perpetuating black victim mentality?
Nah, I mean it could lead to that, but it depends on it depends on how you take it. Because if you respond to it with like you say, if you fight fire with fire, respond to white supremacy with black supremacy, I think that would be way better.
I don't even.
And so but if you look at it like you really believe they're better and we're not as good, then of course it could lead to negative. But if you look at it like, nah, that's crazy, and we're gonna show them how we're just as good, maybe even better, then it could lead. So it's just how how you react.
And I guess I would say that to me, I'm trying to get away from like using the word supremacy in general.
Exactly, that's the word that really
because of
changes.
I mean the understanding of like the idea of there's some white bias. That is it's cool, and you understand that, and then you maneuver and make sure that you do even better because of like I don't think that you should ignore realities, but I don't think that you should fall fault to those realities either. Like all it should be is again another reason to throw your cape on.
Yeah, I think that I definitely agree with that. That the word supremacy, it almost makes that question. It makes the question like it makes the question a little bit weird to answer. You know what I mean? And so I honestly, at this point, I don't believe in white supremacy.
It's not because it's not true.
Yeah, I don't believe in white supremacy. So at the end of the day, go ahead.
Well, no, I got my hand up like
finish your point.
Well, no, I can let you finish, but I just want to make a point. I'm not. You can finish your point, but when we talk about white supremacy, we got to understand where it comes from, and what it comes from is scientifically. This might, our black people have more dominant genes. So we were the first people out here. We were the ones that were physically more dominant and were, so to say, supreme. So when they come over here, the whole white supremacy thing is a counteract to actual reality of what's real truth in science and biology. So we have to understand it from that point. It's a whole, it's a whole trick and a whole scheme that they even started to play. It's a game they started to play to get us to this point. But you have to understand where it come from and like the origins of it.
I mean, I understand that part. I ain't going, you know what I mean? I ain't diving in on that part, but like I say, I don't believe in white supremacy. You know what I mean? I believe that the history speaks for itself. What happened has happened. You know what I mean? The history speaks for itself. But as far as you being supreme to me based on your skin color, I definitely don't believe that. You may have, like he said, there may be bias and benefits to your whiteness. You know what I mean? But you're not supreme.
Right, and I guess to make sure, because like as you said that, it kind of can be clipped inside like this weird way. But what you're talking about is you don't believe in the term white supremacy, but you understand institutional racist bias,
right.
especially for specific racial demographics, i.e., white.
Right.
And the reason I really asked the question the way that I asked it was because, like, I think there's still like a propaganda promotion of that white supremacy, that we still live in a white supremacist system. I feel like they try to put that in our head, because when you actually believe that, especially as a black person, you're literally putting yourself as a subservient to white people. If you actually believe that in your head, like if you say, hey, this is a white supremacist system, then in your head you're automatically saying that black people are less than
inferior.
That's like the victim. That's the victim. That goes right into
that comes down to like what you identify with. Like it's like white people, they had to identify with supremacy to make them feel supreme in this land. Like they came over from Europe, they had to identify with supremacy in order to build sovereignty and do that. So and we don't have to identify.
That's even like a real thing.
I'm saying we don't have to identify with being
in Europe. Ain't nothing but white folk over there. They ain't have to like do that.
I'm talking about when they came over here and it was Indians and it was everything, and they called them savages, and we were gonna civilize them, and it's a certain shit that they identified with. And my question is, as black people, you can identify with what you want to identify with. And my topic was, like we know in the black church and how we were raised, with our grandparents and parents and stuff. It's like a lot of things we believe in and was taught don't necessarily line up or align with like the democratic, side of, politics and their policies. But why don't black people, or what do you think, keeps black people or more black people from voting Republican? Even though if you look at like a lot of their platforms and the things that they speak on, it more closely aligns with how black people actually feel.
I'll probably say like the easiest way to start it is like the simple thing of identity politics. Where I know for me growing up, it's always been the notion of if you were voting Republican, you were Uncle Tom. If you were pretty much voting Democrat, you was voting black. You was voting for the best interests of the black community.
Where does that come from?
But I think, do you think that, and I'm not like a historian or anything, where the Democrats were pro like these, it seems to me as I've gotten grown, it was like pro, well, I already know about the flip part, but the Democrats were more pro the, what is this, like the government like assistance in these programs of
big government.
Well, I'm saying specifically the programs of like assisting and like the, you know what I mean, like the
social welfare thing.
Right.
That's called big government because it's tax money and it costs.
Okay, yeah.
That's why they call it.
So I would think that that's probably why we would have been drawn more to the Democratic side.
For the money.
For the assistance. Right. That's a great to me, that just makes sense to why we would have leaned that way. And then now, as we're getting older, and we're starting to earn and understand the systems a little bit better and using them to our advantages as well, we're able to see that, you know what I mean, we're aligning with a lot more of with the stuff things that Republicans say. And then the Democrats are actually going further. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but we always have, because if you look at like Reconstruction and the time after slavery, and
that's before the flip, also that you're talking about.
I'm saying, but we identify. I'm talking about like small government versus big government. We identified with small government because we didn't, as black people, just coming from slavery, we didn't trust the government,
right?
And that's why we believed in like smaller government, less interference, not a lot of these programs. Then the switch happened, the Jim Crow era, you had the KKK era, all of that shit where they, they kind of boggled it. But I'm saying, like, as black people right now that don't trust the government and stuff, why are we voting, or what keeps us from, voting Republican with less, government, or what is that? Like, I just want to get
to me again. I think it's answered inside with as identity politics. I think right now the reluctance of doing said thing is the decades of tradition of pretty much if you go Republican, you're looked at as an Uncle Tom.
For sure. And I agree 100%.
And like that's literally what it is. Because of, I think we all can agree that for most black people specifically, if we go into like the, especially like middle class, lower middle class, upper lower class, or higher class, it kind of benefits you a little bit more and like a lot of um a lot of what's pushed from like the Republican, like these are things that Black people readily identify with. Even if we just go with like some of the moral shit, it's things that Black people kind of like stand on the ledge on. But I think the identity politic piece of it, that you know what I mean, like February, Black History Month, we only like sit inside like 3 months.
And I can give you another good
three,
example.
my bad, I said 3 months. We only sit in like a 15-year span in which like you can point to these programs in which Democrats were pushing to like hopefully do better for Black people,
right?
And like we lean into that and like we project it to now, in which it's not really applicable.
And I'll say another good example of this, and I'm not in no way. I know we talked about like Christianity the last time, but it was something that came to me like as I began to start thinking for myself and get started. The whole group think thing. I can't remember around what age that was, but it came a time where I was just like, yeah, I don't like that. You know what I mean? And so it was like the example I would go to kind of help answer the question is where a Black person growing up that didn't say that they were Christian. If you were to ask a Black person growing up what was their religion, they would say Christian, even though they don't have really any, you know what I mean,
Like
aren't doing anything.
answer.
Right? Yeah, we all default to it because that's what we were supposed to say. It's been what was said forever. And so it just, like he said, it's identity politics.
I'm first person view of that. That definitely was a challenge growing up in itself. And I remember like even like super duper early on, there was like a small little window where like just to avoid everything else, I just like Christian.
Exactly, you definitely do that.
Yeah, but I'll say I think that also led to like my like reason why I question everything in general, and I look at multiple nuances because there was never really a moment where like my belief system was not to be questioned because I grew up Muslim. And it was always something that I had to like think because the majority of people were Christian.
Right?
So like it's like, huh.
And then my thing is like, were they really, or was that just the default answer?
Well,
and I think that it was just the default answer. I think that we had that as the default answer, and then like I say, you know what I mean? I
think a lot of Black people did grow up in the church, and that did influence. I know the church influenced me personally.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I think that being Christian is that there's an actual definition for that. It's not such a loose thing. That actually means something.
But like let's break it down a little bit better. Like Christianity and the Black church are two different things. We're talking about the Black church.
No, I'm just talking about saying Christian. No, he's not. I'm talking about specifically saying you're Christian. Just that portion of it. A person that is saying that they are Christian. Because we did it for years. Like literally, you damn near didn't hear a Black person when I was growing up. You didn't hear them say that they weren't Christian. Yeah. And it was really just based on the default answer. It was, and I'm not down talking the religion or anything like that at all. I'm just saying that this is a fact.
Was based in the influence of the Black church, and that's why all Black people thought they had to say that because of the power of the Black church and the influence the Black church had.
But it's also just that group thing. But it's also just a group thing too. You felt that
pressure to say Christian because the Black church has so much power in our community.
I see your point there.
That's why you felt like you had to say Christian. It was because of the Black Martin Luther King and like the Black church.
No, honestly, bro, I felt like I had to say it because that's what everybody else was saying.
But where did they get that pressure from? Like,
I think we all just got it from each other, and you know what I mean. It was something like he's saying the same thing where it comes with the Democrats. It was literally something that has just been passed down, and we've literally. And I'm not saying like you say, Democrats they've done some things for the Black community as far as these assistance programs and all these different things. They've done some things.
I agree.
And so that they did have power. Like it's like the same. You see what I'm saying?
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just defining it a little bit different as far as like you're saying. We said Christian. And I'm saying, I get that, but I'm saying, where did that come from?
Like, I think that came from.
Where did that like need come from? That comes from the power and the influence of the Black church on our community.
But it also the point that I'm making is the point that I'm making is we always have to try. We always try to identify as things and try to group ourselves together into these identities. That's the point that I'm making.
Yeah, you look like an extra definition for no reason, pretty much. No, I get what you're saying.
That was a great definition. I forgot to play with you.
I'm
saying like we were getting conflated on.
I'm trying to understand it for real because I get what
you didn't disagree with anything. Like we were about to get into like debate argument mode over like Christianity, Black church, where that didn't have to deal with the overall point. The overall point was identity politics and identifying with the thing. You were going a level deeper where
Okay.
if
I
we
was just
stay
using that
on
as an
topic, we
example.
don't need to go there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just using that as an example
Okay.
to kind of, you know what I mean?
I
I,
mean,
I was about to say though, just off of that point, I think that the reason, like when we was younger, like people had to people defaulted to Christian was because that meant you was a safe black.
Mm.
Like, and I think that's what it was. It meant you was a good black person. You was a safe black person. That was just the way of people saying it. So it made other people feel safe.
Yeah, that level of morality that
well,
comes from it, the idea.
that's the Martin versus Malcolm.
And yeah, I agree because
thing.
Malcolm's whole view was that black culture is pretty much controlled by white liberals, and I still think
That's the Malcolm
true
versus
today. I
Martin. The
think that's the true thing
Christianity, the
today.
same thing. If you want to go, if you want to live in this white world, you tell them Christianity because that's how you deal in this white world. Now, Malcolm always told us, hey, it's the black shit over here, and that, you know, that Nation of Islam over that. And that was the one where, like, people shot it because that's tough. That's the path. You look into the paths of least resistance, it's easy to say Christian. It's hard to say, oh, no, I'm a Muslim, or I identify with this, and that's.
Oh yeah, well the times are switching.
It's
It's
switching
getting harder to say Christian nowadays. If you notice that, it's not just a safe bet anymore.
Because it's information age. We all are understanding and learning these things about our past and our history, and you know, everybody might be arriving to the same conclusion later, but it just all comes from there. But I don't know.
So I mean, I feel like the conversation got a little
Shifted.
derailed right there. Have you gotten everything out about the actual political sphere and given like your perspective on why black people vote Democrat? I mean, vote Democrat more than anything.
I have a question for you to unpack a little bit deeper into what your question is. So, what are these ideals that you think align with what black people think that Republicans also think?
There we go.
I mean, a lot of it comes down back to the black as far as like less government. You know, we don't trust the government like taxes, not paying a whole bunch of taxes, having lower taxes.
Honestly, to be
individual freedoms, which that gets a little muddy because that's why I don't fuck with Republicans because they'll be individual freedom on one aspect, but then they'll contradict themselves on another one. That's where I have an issue with Republicans there. But like they say they're about personal freedoms and liberation, so being able to do whatever you want to do, like the Second Amendment, being able to hold guns and like, dang, I believe you should be able to do for the most part whatever the fuck you want to do in this country. I don't think there should be a lot of laws and bureaucracy keeping you from doing what you want. As a black person, I believe in freedom. You know, we fought with that shit. I fought with whatever, you know, and that's why I kind of align with them. But some of the people.
So Johnny, so really, what you're using is with this topic to do is to let us know you're now announcing that you're a proud Republican.
No, I didn't say that at all. I just was talking about their contradictions. I just was talking about their contradictions and how I don't like.
Why are you so defensive about it?
I'm an independent.
Identity politics.
Identity politics. Exactly. You don't want to be on here as a black man sitting here talking about I'm a Republican.
Well, no, because
even though like your whole thing,
because I think they have a whole bunch of stupid shit that they endorse too that I just logically can't agree with, just based on logic. So it's not Democrat. I'm an independent, but there are certain things that make more sense than the arguments that.
So is your argument that black people should be independent?
Yeah, because you framed it as like
because you said Republican.
I mean independent, but yeah, I mean it was
all right, so if you didn't know, most black Republicans say that they're independents.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I know.
And but
hey, box in a minute. That's that identity politics all the way. Good God, you ever seen Four Quarters before?
But no, I'm about to get up out this shit though. I dance. I dance.
Johnny said I'm independent and agreed that most independents that's black are Republicans.
But no, because I'm saying crazy. In order to get black people out of we're so far linked in
the Democratic plantation.
Come on,
Candace.
To where
get it.
To where
Candace.
But no, I've always talked about the horseshoe theory about how, where if you're gonna logically make certain arguments, I have to logically make those arguments against the Republicans too. But I have to put them on Front Street to where you can even see the similarities between why everybody is looking at it the same.
So why shouldn't black people be Republicans?
Because I don't think either one of the policies or parties have black people specifically interests at heart. I think it'll only be an independent party created by black Americans who we're very influential in this country. We've had a lot of things.
Oh, you're trying to use the cheat
That's
code.
the
I can
best.
lock you back in if you
That's
want.
the best. That's the best way to do it. I feel like it's just.
So if you had to choose a party, what one you didn't name anything that
He really
Republicans.
didn't.
Yeah, you just tried to like skate that.
He did. He
So
did.
let's go back to that question. What is it? What are some things that Republicans do to where black people shouldn't vote for them?
You said shouldn't.
Should not.
I don't think black people shouldn't vote for Republicans.
All right, I'm gonna tap out.
Like,
you going around. You was just saying how. All right, I'm gonna tap out.
Well, I'm saying, like, where you want to put me? Because I can argue, like.
I'm not trying to argue. I'm trying to figure out your mind. All right, so just a second ago, you were just on the ledge that they shouldn't vote for either party, and that you was calling out the bullshit on Democrats, but it's equally the same shit on Republicans. So then I was asking you, okay, so you also got smoke for Republicans. So now I'm asking you the Republican thing, and now you're also back. Now you're backtracking, saying, well, they actually should vote.
I got smoke for Republicans, but
I'm asking.
What smoke? What you got for them? What you think that they doing that's not like some shit that you rock with?
I mean, I think they got a bunch of like they kind of slightly racist policies. A lot of them, like they're all for law and order until they don't agree with the laws and orders.
Okay.
Like you could even look at like the January 6th shit. You look at how they talked about the black protests. You know, black people need to do all this shit, and then January 6th happened. They running in breaking laws and doing, and that's all fine because you didn't agree with all of that shit. So there's and that's all based in like identity politics, to where in white supremacy they think they're better than they think their opinions way more than like other people's opinions. So that's part of the shit that I don't agree with Republicans, and why I don't necessarily go out and vote for them. I don't think they're good leaders.
Hey, y'all seen that? You know what's Judge Joe Brown? He was on some show and he was talking about Joe Biden back in the day. He said he was at a speech with Joe Biden was out there and he was talking about calling black people roaches and all kinds of shit.
Oh yeah, that came up during his campaign.
I ain't hear about that during the campaign, John. I just seen that old head. You know what I mean? Old head was the Democrat, like it's been. You know, my grandma.
Oh yeah, no, it's a traditional thing.
Yeah,
and even you want? Go ahead.
No, I had a question that really like we kind of tiptoeing around the question here that's actually then came up within this thing. Why is it that black people are expected to only vote one way? Like it's a problem in the black community. Like when we look at somebody who says, "Yeah, I voted Republican," we look at them strange. But within any other community, we don't think anything strange about anybody, like whichever direction they vote. Like
people not necessarily people can have independent political thoughts outside of their blackness or whatever.
I mean, I think that there's like it's to me it's shocking to hear like a white old dude say that he's a Democrat. It's to me, for me it is. For me it is, because I just my assumption. I think it's all in identity politics. That the answer is what we've been talking about the whole time.
And the reality is that, especially today, in general, like identity politics, to be Republican, to like even right now, if you just have an American flag, that is almost an allegiance to like a specific ideology and different things and X, Y, and Z, to where everything is overly polarized.
But why is that? Because there's a lot of black people that went in like World War II and fought for that American flag to help the Jewish people in Germany when they were going through their oppression. There was a bunch of black people.
But how many black people do you see with the joint on their cars?
Right. But what I'm at, where did it get lost? That's
I guess I don't know. I think I was trying to answer the question that was why is it that voting Democrat is looked at as okay, but in general, like voting Republican isn't. And I think that in general, we live inside a society that socially media is driven by liberals. So like you have Fox News, but even when you mention Fox News, that's kind of like pushed under the rug. But in general, whether it's sports, it's entertainment, it's like however else you want to consume shit, even the social media platforms in general, what they ban primarily is going to be more conservative perspectives and viewpoints, because of like social media has pushed a more liberal agenda in general. And so conservative Republicans are almost synonyms, in which like typically if a person is a Republican, typically if they have like an American flag, black or white, typically like this, like a specific kind of like certain things. You say NRA, different little shit. It kind of leans into this whole thing in which you get castigated into a very specific box, and that's white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whoever. And that seems to be like a really interesting space that we're in also right now, to where being conservative ends up being its own thing in general, to which society has almost castigated. Yes.
You know something that's crazy? Like in the conversation, like think about this. So we all born and raised in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The Confederate flag is the conservative, right? We look at that as the racist flag, right?
Oh, but I said it was.
But then also black people don't even use the American flag. Ain't that crazy?
Well, because
so they got the Confederate flag and we got the U.S. flag. You know what I mean?
We don't fuck with either.
And we don't fuck with either one of them.
They both racist to us.
Exactly. Ain't that crazy?
Because I think it's crazy motherfuckers be flying Confederate flags and like them motherfuckers lost the war. When losers ever get to fly their flag?
Hey.
Losers go, but that goes that power, that identity politics, and all of that. But I mean, we might have then got lost in it a little bit.
Think so? I think we was doing.
I was cool with it. I think like you brought up a good point with the American flag thing and black people. But I think to answer what you're saying, I think in general black people haven't like been overly supportive of like just hanging the American flag and flying it, because of generally our journey as citizens of America has not been representative of what that flag represents.
Right.
So like that's always kind of been a thing, but it's more so interesting to me to see that become like a societal thing, because everybody else would be happy to like fly the flag, Republican, Democrat, black, not black, but like white, Hispanics, to do like whoever, like they would, but now it means something specifically. Because like we always kind of had that whole thing. If anything, it was gonna fly like the black flag, the you know what I mean, red, black, and green, or some shit like that. But it was always going to be rare that you seen a black person with the flag. But now it's just a societal thing.
Can I ask something? I just want to before we put a pin in it, I just want to hit back on what you said about like you answered my question about like why black people don't vote Republican. You based it off the media and all of that. But let's think of a term: net positive, net negative. Is that like how does that affect the society?
It's a net negative because of it doesn't allow for both parties to actually fight for our vote. In which you then lose leverage when it comes down to getting things done.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
That's kind of where I wanted to get to it this whole time.
Yeah, that same thing Ice Cube was talking about.
That's kind of that's the point. That is the point.
That's the exact point. I think it's a dangerous thing for any community to only have a one-way opinion about stuff. Especially when it's a dictated opinion, because we all got different views on different opinions within this party. But if you vote for the party, you vote for the party.
Yeah, that group. I think group think is dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
I think the group thinking in most scenarios is very dangerous.
And hey, listen, I'll tell you right now, I didn't vote for Trump or Biden last election.
Me neither.
Yeah, I voted for Biden. Yeah, because it was honestly it was the same thing with like the same thing that we talk about now. My pops getting his information from my grandma, which my grandma has always been Democrat. My pop's a strong Democrat, and you know what I mean. We sitting here talking about the things that we talk about, and see, like for me, I'm the type person.
We had a lot of conversations in this house about that.
Yeah,
like I'm the type person. Like you probably came through for a couple.
A lot of my family mad at me that I ain't vote for nobody.
And like to me, like I'm the type person that like as long as like I don't mind paying taxes. You know what I mean? If the tax money is going to help people, if that's what it's going to do, I don't mind paying tax money. If you say you're going to raise my taxes $5,
but if somebody going to take it and buy like $1 million estate, though, you probably got an issue with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if that is the case, but I mean, I don't follow the bread. Like, you know what I mean? If I think a lot of people try to make these statements and stuff. You ain't followed that shit enough to know exactly what's going on.
The U.S. government spending.
No, you can look at
how inefficient it is,
right?
And like how much money they waste on like stupid shit, and then
like what? When you say, I just want to know, like stupid shit.
I seen something about they had an ad about like Like they spent like $2-3 million on the ad about like eggs or something, like just crazy shit. Like
sending money to Ukraine.
I seen they spent like
But they had to do that. They
spent a
started the
couple
war. You
million
can't just
dollars
start the war and
on
then
just
leave these niggas hanging.
mistakes, where they have them like go and reprint shit and stuff like that. And I get the question: is that really mistakes, or is that somebody like
Yeah, but
Running the
don't.
numbers.
siphoning money off
No,
of the
and I get that.
government?
You
And
can
then that's
ask
our
that question.
and that's our tax dollars.
At the same time, you can ask that question, but you can't propose it like it's a fact. You can't say that. You know what I mean?
I'm asking that.
So but anyway, I definitely, yes, I would have defined myself, or I would have, I would have said that I was a Democrat, just as I would have said that I was a Christian before I really, like, you know what I mean? I don't say that I'm a religious. I don't have a designated. You know what I mean? I believe in being a good person. I believe that, and I do believe in a lot of the teachings in the Bible. You know what I mean? And I think that, you know what I mean. But anyway, then going on to the politics, I believe in things on both sides. Like you said, independent is more where I lie on both conversations. But damn, I forgot where I was going with it. But yeah, I think that it's very dangerous for us to be in any box. Like you say, it gives us this allows us the ability to see what's going to be offered on the other side. And that's really to the detriment of us voting at all. Because if you can assume that I'm on your side, then I don't really have to
You're
do
not
anything.
gonna do nothing for it.
I don't have to do anything.
So I like to say I'm more centrist. If anything, I do lean closer into conservative. But I also, like I said, I voted independent last election. Because of I've had too many conversations in which I've been able to point out the idiocracies on both sides. To where I don't believe that being tribal to either party is important. So to me, I have to do the thing that I speak of. Which is like actually leveraging my vote until there's somebody that actually has what I want inside a candidate, inside policies, X, Y, and Z.
And then let me tell you another thing
It's
too. My
very
pops
short.
was telling me that not voting for either the Republican or the Democrat, you're pretty much throwing away your vote. And he had convinced me of that as well. Because you're pretty much voting to lose, which doesn't help anything. But at the same time, now I understand it in a way that it's like, okay, you can say that I didn't vote for either of them. But at the end of the day, if we start to popularize this independent voting, then that becomes another thing. So I didn't see
You could argue,
the validity and the
you
value
could
in
argue
that.
just voting Democrat for 40 fucking years is throwing away your vote.
Right, and then I think that there's also the idea of like simply being and just understanding the way that numbers work and being a counted number that isn't going to either of these other ones.
Well, exactly,
Now,
that's the thing.
so you're documented, so it's not a make believe number or like these people didn't vote. It's a documented number that can be swayed if there's something important enough.
Yeah, I just didn't understand I didn't understand. That's why I like to go ahead and talk about where I was, where my mind was then and then. You know what I mean? So
no, I take perspective. I feel like we definitely we unpacked that one. We got down to the nitty gritty on that one. I think that's a good place for us to put a pin in it.
What we got next? I heard we got a new segment.
Realizations.
Yeah. Okay, so I was thinking, right, trying to figure out. I guess the question that was on my head was like, even though previous episode I asked where the disconnect was between men and women, they said that there was no disconnect between men and women, and we unpacked that. I still stand on the fact that there is, right, and so I was still searching to figure out why is it that our women don't listen to us, like they don't really care too much, like they don't really give a shit about what we say. And so I got to thinking about it, and I went to sleep thinking about it, and I woke up the next morning and I was like, man, you got to think about it. Like, okay, so we are the first generation. Our generation has the most single mother households than any other generation previous.
Is that true?
That's a fact. You can Google it. I Googled it. It's like from 81 to 96. It's the most single parent households.
Our generation. Oh, you talking about the mothers that we grew up on?
Yeah,
Our parents. About like us as parents.
No. Our parents we were raised. Our generation was the most single.
That makes sense. Okay.
Then also, our women that are in our age bracket, right? That same generation are the women that earn more than their mothers and more than their mothers, more than their fathers, and the men that they're dating. On average, women earn more than men, right?
Jeez.
But and so
I thought it was like 40%.
Say it again.
I thought it was like 40% of women made more than their partners.
Yeah, I think, and there's also an age limit to that.
Okay,
But keep going.
No. You good. At the end of the day, I think that right there in itself, the fact that we based our value on money, right? Then also most of them haven't seen, they haven't actually been around men and grown with men. So there's that first off, that right there, the fact that you earn more than the man, then you haven't seen a man be respected. And I think that those two two things are the reason why it's what is like we're almost like we're liberated. We've won. So
Black women.
Yeah, we've won. In comparative to our parents, in comparative to our partners, we've won. So why do you think you should be able to tell me a damn thing?
So you think because they're liberated, that's why they don't listen to black men?
Yes.
You don't. Okay. Can I give my answer?
Absolutely.
I think, and I ain't gonna speak for all black men.
Go ahead.
But what you got?
No, I was going to ask Taj first. That's why I wanted to go to Taj right after I gave him what my opinion was, so that she could give me something to think about. To maybe
let me answer.
Answer for.
I want to go. And then I'll let Taj.
Okay.
But because I just want to see something.
You're not liberating me.
I'm not trying.
Yes, exactly.
My question ain't got nothing to do with liberating nobody, but I mean, cause and I'm all for that. I love to see that what black women are doing. This shit make me proud. I love to see that shit. I got my mom and my sister. I got 2 nieces. I love black women, like legit, like outside of like anything. Like some of the people I love the most in this world are black women. So for sure, I ain't never gonna hate on any progress they making. But I think a lot of it come down to doing. I don't know where the blame go, but is the problem is the reason that black women don't listen to black men is because black men may not know how to talk to black women all the way. Like how much of that, like if somebody I'm in sales, so I understand, like if somebody ain't listening, you might have to change your approach. You might have to talk to them different.
Yeah, but
they might not understand this way of talking. They might not when I'm being aggressive. But what if I, like lead with compliment and then hit them with what I really need instead of like starting with my criticisms first. What if I, how much of the blame go to black men about just us? I said that last time about being vulnerable and that emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and I think that to go along with what you're saying, I don't think most women are ready for an emotionally intelligent man. Because when you go with emotional intelligence, that means that I'm going to actually say the thing that we don't say, I'm actually going to say it every time because I feel a way. Most times, men, we're going to hold it back because we're actually trying to not give. You know what I mean? We don't want to make them feel because we feel a way. We don't want to make them feel a way because of how we feel, so we keep it in. So I don't think most women are actually ready for the things that they're talking about, as far as like men becoming more, speaking more about how they feel and all of this stuff. Because if you can't take constructive criticism when I try to do it in all these different ways, then for me to consistently do it, I highly doubt you're ready for that. So I think that's one of those sound good things. And I would say a lot. I won't even say most. I'll say a lot of women aren't really ready for that because I mean, think about it. Men have never been that. So like, in order for we all gonna have to grow in order to actually make this thing real.
But as a man, a lot of times, even your grievances, though, like you got to understand like your audience. I think that's one thing where like leadership and like being a man is like I might not be able to talk to my lady the same way I talk to my homeboys.
For sure.
I might want to be able to get my same groove and be transparent and talk about my feelings and get my points across, but I'm still gonna have to do it differently with my lady than I do it with like my homies. Absolutely. And so I think there comes a level of like, nuance with how
if I ain't know better, I thought Johnny was inside like a recent relationship. Who is this like secret lady? The growth in your perspective has been amazing over like the past like 2 months. Who you been talking to, Johnny?
I'm just chilling, man.
You hitting the beans. Hold on, I want to kind of chime in real quick. I think that one, you brought up like a good point where most women. Well, I don't know statistics, but if we just go with the idea of like black families, black single mothers, X, Y, and Z, and so most women not growing up with a father figure inside their household and understanding like that whole dynamic. I think that like if that's fair and that's true. I think that also is a reflection to the fact that men haven't grown up with a male inside the house and understanding what it actually looks like as a male and outside of like traditional like tropes or like stereotypical tropes. I don't want to use the word traditional. Stereotypical tropes that it takes to actually make a relationship work.
And the one thing that I didn't want to do, because I think that this is something that we can do, I want to keep conversations separate. So like when I say separate, I mean I hate when like I bring up something and then someone else like, okay, you know how to, but you such and such. Like to keep the conversation. I understand that there's reasons why men aren't, let's say, aren't lead, or you know what I mean, why they lack leadership and why men. So but we'll talk. I want to talk about that when we want to talk about that part because we could. Because we can put that on.
I guess like
that was my answer to the question.
But you can't ask the question of why do women not listen to men without bringing up that part of it too.
Right. So
because it's not just a one-sided street. Communication goes on both ends.
I get that part, right? But what I'm saying is that you can talk about one and then talk about the other separate. So like, okay, so why do I not communicate effectively to you? We can talk about that without you telling me without you telling me about my communication. I may have said that wrong, but yeah.
Like
you're trying to dig into. I think he's trying to dig into. Like,
specifically the faults of women
I wouldn't say faults. I don't think
it's not necessarily faults. To me, it's not a fault.
But he's trying to find
like the exact why.
The disconnect. He wants to dig and find the disconnect that women may have with men.
Exactly. And we can talk about men on the other side.
All right. So, but and like as in when I gave you what you said, and to me, I built on it because I agree. I get that part. I think that's a valid like observation. I think. Like
what about the earning part? Huh? What about the earning part?
The earning
you said part? You talked about the single households. What about the earning part?
Yeah, like these are all things.
With, like, women listening.
Johnny ain't want me to answer.
Oh, my
bad. But no. So like that's another one that I can't answer solely on women because I think the earning part. All right. So boom. All right. Cool. If I answered like solely the female version of like the fault of that. I would say that women needing to be able to understand that their role has expanded outside of just domestic work. And with that, the other side of that is also understanding like the things that comes with it inside the man that you're looking for and like what he'll be providing for you and what those roles end up looking like and have evolved because of like if you're a career woman and you want a guy that is doing all the traditional shit, that probably doesn't make any sense because you're not going to be able to do all the traditional shit as a woman. So being able to also adjust to like modern day, current day times, I think that's important for women to be able to do.
Talking about like a woman making more than a man. Let's reverse it. Do you think a man that makes more than a woman is capable of actually listening to her and and what gives a man that capability versus a woman not being able to?
The reason why I would say this because men have always been traditionally been valued based on their contribution financially, and so that's where if that's not, you see what I'm saying, that's pretty much where we've been gauged, our ability to provide. So that's why if you shift that, then it's like, okay, well, if she's actually earning more, which I don't have a problem with it. To me, it made it just make sense for me. It made it just make sense for me. So it's like, okay, well, no, they are killing the game. So like, okay, so at what point, how long does it take for us to get past them killing the game and then killing the game and then us trying to figure out how to work it together again? So like my thing was just understanding where we are and then kind of building from there. So it was like, okay, man, that shit just makes sense. No, if she's only seeing the single mother aspect, and then whatever stories are told within that, and then you know what I mean, then she's earning more than both of her parents and her man. She's killed the game. She's killed the game. She doesn't really need you how we've always, you know what I mean? She doesn't really need you in the aspect of what we always thought were the whole idea a man's supposed to provide. She still need protection, but she can afford protection. So that's what I'm saying. I understand why they pop shit. You know what I mean? Why they pop shit, because you've done it. You've done it. And like,
let me ask you this. What's the difference between like that and like we talked about it last week. Our grandmothers who had to step in and take jobs and you know do what was required outside of them
Yeah, the idea that in general,
in the feminine
within the
role.
black community, the male's not looked at as like the sole provider traditionally, because of black women have always worked.
So say it one more time. What's your question, Johnny?
But I'm saying, but I think we had good communities, even before and sometimes women had to step up, because of we talk about victim mentality, whatever.
Right.
But there was a lot of times where like our grandparents had to step up,
Right.
or our grandmothers
Right.
had to step up to the plate to kind of help fill some of those gaps.
Right.
And do you think that they looked at our grandfathers any differently, or what was it about our grandfathers that allowed our grandmothers to still look at them
That's
like the
very well.
like the real leaders, even though they were stepping, so, and then that's what I'm trying to get to, because there was something about our grandfathers, even outside of just that providing shit, that they were still the leaders of the house, and it was something about their character and who they were as just people.
And I would say that, number one, that our grandfathers, there was more. It was that protect, and that protect was a very strong one too. That one there had a lot of value to it as well. So that protect and provide, and then I would say that more than likely our grandmother didn't earn as much as our grandfather did. She did help, but the thing was, to me, in my opinion, I think that that value was placed still in the nurturing aspect of her position. That part right there was that the value that we value that so much more heavily. So I think in today's time we value the money aspect. That is just on both sides. Seem like now that is where men and women hold their value, and you know what I mean. It's more about the money part. What do you if because even I was looking at a video, and it was a Steve Harvey was asking this woman what she's looking for, right? And she named out like pretty much career driven, and you know what I mean, has his own car, has his own house, all of those like things,
shit.
those things based things. But then it was like he was talking about back in the day, he was like, where is the character? Where is the morality? Those aren't the things that's being named out anymore, because we're actually changing the values to these. It's going to be about productivity, monetary gain.
Capitalism. But let me ask you this though. We talked about the nurturing thing. We had my boy, Jeff on here, and talked about like what about them nurturing qualities for a father? How much value is that to have that man in the house?
And it's
with
very
those
valuable.
with those qualities, and like
It's just
if
a
we
shift.
got that, but like how much better would our communities be if that was present in every household, and every young black kid had not just a mother that was nurturing, but a father who was providing, but also nurturing.
It'd be grand.
And so when we ask these questions, a lot of times it's on the women, but we gotta, bring it back to the men.
The thing is, the only thing I said is I just like to have it in a separate conversation. Yeah. I'm all about. Matter of fact,
But it's so hard to have like these separate because. Go ahead.
And see the thing, like that's okay. So did I answer your question
about the value of men being in the house, and like how much value does that have?
Oh yeah, I mean honestly, bro. At the end of the day, I'm not disagreeing that like this idea of uh both partners being nurturing, both partners being earning, both partner. I'm not disagreeing with that. Only thing that I brought the topic up was to say that now I understand. Like for me as a traditional man, I value more the nurturing side of women than earning. Because I'm the type of person I don't that my lifestyle is going to be beneath my financial, you know what I mean, what I gain. So it's not going to be requirement that you earn this crazy, you know what I mean. So that's just how I choose to live. So and what I'm saying is that I understand now. They won, they're winning, and now at this point it's like a lot of them feel like I don't need you to lead me because I've done it. I've led myself to this success. So, and that's just my opinion, and that's why I want to kick the ties. I wonder what you think about what has kind of how the conversation has gone.
So you touched on the household, the parental household, right? So you came at it from the stance of women not having been in the house, but let's not also negate the fact that if there's a two-parent household, if they don't have good communication with themselves, they're also showing that to their child. So you can't say just because a man is not in the house that a woman doesn't know how to communicate, where they could have grew up in a toxic household, right? Mm-hmm. So you also got to think about that. And that's not act like women don't want a man that's stable. We value stability as well. Like we want you stable. We want to know you're able to take care of yourself. And if you're talking about expanding a family, you being stable also shows that you could possibly take care of a family as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about then the communication part. So when it comes to communication, like I said, it's a two-way street. You have to figure out what somebody's communication style is and meet them where they're at. If you're the type of person that, let's just say hypothetically, right? Y'all argue, and you're the type of person that wants to bring up like 10,000 points in 20 minutes, and you like these long arguments. The person might shut down because they're like, yo, I'm not doing this with you. Right. But if you keep like berating, that person's going to lash out at you. Now it's not going to be effective communication, right? So when you think about communication within a relationship, those two people have to figure out how to communicate with each other to have effective communication and resolve issues, and there not be any disconnect or any turmoil within a household or relationship or whatever. So I do feel like when it comes to communication, it is one of those things that you have to learn how to do that with each other. Because how you communicate it with one person might not work for the next person.
And I'd agree with that. And my point wasn't specifically in relationships. I'm talking about just in general. So like the idea, like we brought up the fact of like where, or I brought up the fact of where I don't believe that women actually like care what men think. We don't care whether we like eyelashes or whether we like whatever you do. You don't, I mean, not you, but I'm saying I don't think that they care. And so as me going further into that, it's like, okay, why is it that they don't care? And I think it's because they want.
I think it's the massive, like for me, I don't, hold up. For me, I don't care what men think as a whole, but I care what my partner thinks. I'm here with my partner, right?
But if you don't have a partner, who do you care? What do you care?
I value what my dad thinks of me, what my brother thinks of me, but I don't value what the general public of men think of me. What I value is the people who actually mean something to me, right? Okay. So if you're a stranger walking down the street, I'm not going to value your opinion because you don't know me and I don't know you. However, my father, my brothers, those are the men that I love in my life that I cherish their opinions. Now, if I meet you and we establish a connection, it's like, oh, I value this person. Obviously, I'm going to value your opinion, but a total stranger, I don't care.
But women are winning. That means we're losing, right? If you're saying they're winning.
Well, I mean, when I say they're winning, when I say winning, I mean that they've murdered the game more. Not the fact that there's a winner and a loser. They're fucking
okay. But if they're winning, that means we're not murdering the game.
Okay, well, let's say that we're not murdering the game.
What is these words? What does these things? What does that mean? Like that's a crazy thing.
Let's keep it at winning and losing. Let's just keep it there.
And losing. Like if they're winning, we're losing.
Okay.
And if anybody that plays sports, when you lose a game, what you got to do?
Figure out how to win.
You got to figure out how to win. You got to go watch the film.
Exactly.
You got to figure out, and like a lot of the things we've talked about emotional intelligence, and how to, even if a woman is making more than you, if you can't bring more to the table than just like your wallet, then you might have to go back to the drawing board and work and be a better person. And see, work on your character.
And I get what you're saying. See, when I made the statement, it wasn't to go into relationships. I was just in general. Why is it that a lot of men feel that women don't listen to men?
I think the way that things are approached. I really feel like
it may be the way that we are saying it.
Thing for sure is like because some men don't know how to differentiate. Like Newton was saying, the audience, right? You can't sit here and talk to me the same way that you talk to your child, talk to your friends, talk to your parents. I'm a different person. That's why I said communication has to be something that's learned, right? If you don't know me, and let's just say for whatever reason you come at me crazy, you're going to get crazy from me because you're disrespecting me. I don't know you. So
right.
I don't
whether
know
whether you're right or wrong.
Yeah, whether you're right or wrong, I don't know you to know how you communicate. So if you come at me like, why the fuck, I'm gonna meet you where you at. Like, who are you?
No matter what, even if what you saying got validity, I'm not listening to that because of how you said it to me.
Right. So if you come at me aggressive, that's not how, I don't like communicating like that. So I'm going to come back at you aggressive. We're going to get nowhere. So I do feel like people do have to tailor the things that they say and how they say it, even though you might not know the person, but just try to come at it at a little bit of a different, softer approach. Like even if you're mad or whatever, like you coming at a stranger crazy is in itself a crazy idea. But at the end of the day, like working in retail, I've had men come at me crazy and they don't know me.
Yeah.
So it's like it is a big communication gap to where somebody can easily get defensive based on how you say something to them because y'all don't know each other.
Yeah, I think that this would be a good game night question to get some more because I think that there's you could even just like look at the footage on like a game night and see like even if I'm not saying anything that's like attacking you or like I can say you know what I mean.
People get defensive.
We can sit and
based on who's asking the question.
At the end of the day. Hey, that's my observation is that like more.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think the answer?
Yeah, I already gave my answer. I think that like at the end of the day, I think that women are doing. We're gonna, as a society, there's a lot of things that are changing. Roles that are gonna, what we're trying to make gender roles non-existent. We're trying to make, you know what I mean. We're making a lot of big changes within a smaller time period. We're gonna have to see the evolution of this, and we're gonna have to adjust accordingly to make sure that it builds families. Well, that's the end goal. The end goal is to build families. So if that's the end goal, then we're gonna have to actually see how this evolution plans out and just try to make the best of it as of it as we can. Because if we're gonna say that if we're gonna say that for the most part of our history, there's been the traditional when I don't even want to use the word traditional. Men have
I
Family,
been
don't.
more men are
family
it's
nucleus.
more it's like the men have had that protector provider role, women have had the nurturing role. So now we're saying that we want men and women to have men to still protect and to provide, but we want women to
Well, I
still
think
provide.
if you go further into history, I don't think it's always like the men provider women. I think it's just been like family nucleus. I think the roles have changed over
Yeah, this
society and
isn't like a new
history.
thing within the
Like
past 30 years.
gender
Like,
roles change with societies and history and
Yeah,
time. So
And then you also mentioned single mothers. You got to think about if you're a single mom and you're doing it all by yourself, you literally have to be everything all by yourself.
for sure, respect after that shit. For sure, that's the to me. I 100% give all the respect to that single. Well, if you're having to not of your own like your own creation to have to do it yourself, you've like if you're actually doggone taking care of the kids, checking homework, going to work, you know what I mean, doing all of that, you are the doggone that's superhuman shit, in my opinion. That's superhuman shit. Like even like a man that decides that he's going to take the kids and do everything, yeah, that's the you know what I mean? That's the epitome of greatness to me. Especially if you're gonna do it at a level to where you know what I mean? If you're actually doing it and being intentional about the way you're going about it, you've done, you know what I mean? My hat's definitely off to you, whether it be male or female, which we've seen generally women
yeah, that's what I
fucking
say. Women,
strong arm that shit in our community for.
superwoman.
Yeah, and we can talk about just our generation. Like we said, our generation is the most has the most single mother households than any generation before. So like they murdered the game, and I mean I won't say that they all murdered the game. I mean they did what they could, and you know what I mean with what they had. And so I think that with us it started something different. It started a change where it's like okay now we're trying to correct this single mother. You know what I mean? That single mother dynamic. We're trying to, at least we're trying our best. A lot. The guys I know are. You know what I mean? I don't know too many dudes. Well, I don't really know dudes that's not like trying to. You know what I mean? That's just like fuck them kids. You know what I mean? I ain't seen that. I ain't seen that. So, only reason why I
That
brought the
shit don't
question up
fly.
was just kind of trying to see because I think it's for me. Once I acknowledge that, now I know. Okay, well that it makes sense. So it's not that not being. It's not pessimistic. It just makes sense. So now, what do you do to adjust?
You talking about okay? So you understand the win, the loss. You understand why they win, and you
Like you
say
said, what do
you
you do? Like you
you
said,
you can adjust accordingly. You can change
right.
their game plan. Nah, I
So
feel
then that
that, man. I
automatically, if a
feel that.
man accept that, then he'll be
Yeah,
able to see, okay, well,
I gotta
if
do
that's
this better.
exactly,
Nah, that's
exactly. So then you'll start to see exactly like why it is that these requirements have changed for men.
right. So I guess you kind of led to where I was going to go. And to me, this is also why initially it was hard not to like add men into this because of so if you're giving statistical reasons of something, it's not much of like a debate there. So if women are growing up here, they're earning more X, Y, and Z. So there's an understanding of like you're going to have different expectations than any generation before you. To me, when I hear the information that you've given, what I take is as a man, like we love the table talk, right? Hey, what are you going to bring to the table? So as a man now, being that like some of those traditional quote unquote tropes, um, are not specifically the thing that is of highest value, unless you're like these 1% men and shit like that. What are you actually bringing to the table as a partner? And I think that's where like a lot of growth and solutions inside this conversation to me comes at is when we sit together as black men and we started thinking about, all right, so now how do I become a better partner in 2023? What does that look like? What does that kind of manifest itself at being the fact that I have all this information in front of me, and I know that the current woman is not the woman from 1950, and so like those rules and rubrics have no application here, and so now it's like, all right, what do I bring outside of money? Because of, again, for the past 40 years, black women has also brought money, and it's like it's been more so a partnership within the black community. It's just the reality of what it is. You can look at the statistics. Is not a big differentiation between how much men and women made inside the black community. So if we understand this and we go off of what like me and we deviate away from what we understand as traditional Caucasian family structures, and we start talking about what the black family structure has always been. Then we have to start talking about what we bring. Go ahead.
So you said, okay, well, just based on what you said, go ahead. Let me go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, shit. So from my experience, right, when you said that, of course, for us, men and the women have always worked, and you said that they've also earned similar wages.
Yeah, it's not a big difference.
So okay, well, I would say, and from my experience, right. So from my experience, tradesmen are made good money, and there was not a equivalent that women were making during that time. Because I know, like my pops doing roofing,
dominated by black men though. Like,
well, I mean, I can only speak for myself. From my experience, my pops did roofing, my uncle and automotive. My uncle did.
And black women was typically secretaries, and they were in corporate America.
I'm saying, but even your daddy and your uncle, they probably work with mostly white men though.
No. Well, I mean, that's crazy because my granddad owned the business. My granddad owned the business, so that makes it a big difference too. And then my uncle owned his business too.
Well,
all I can speak to is like statistics.
That's not the average.
Like,
yeah. So that's why I just went ahead and, you know what I mean.
All I'm saying is, statistically speaking, when you look at over the course of like past 56 years, is not a huge difference.
So what you're saying is that did they actually win then?
Did they?
You're saying that nothing has changed. Based on what you're saying, nothing has changed.
I don't know. Like you're using words.
No, fuck that part. Right, so you're saying as far as earning, nothing has changed, is what you're saying.
I think they might have may black women now earn more by a small margin because it's like the margins have never been crazy, and this is why I keep going to like the idea of like the black family traditionally hasn't been like this crazy thing where only like the man worked. That is the quote unquote white perspective of what traditional marriages are. For the majority of everybody that I've known, but then the statistics that back it up says black women have worked. And black men and women have never been like these high earning groups inside America. To where like there's never been like this vast differentiation. But if I go back to like specifically what you were talking about, I think it's value in actually like figuring out in today's time, what do you bring to the table outside of just being a nigga that got money? Because a lot of females end up having money as well.
You know what it remind me of?
Like, and I like to actually unpack that conversation.
So my question would be: since it was the same, then why was it that the value of a man was the money and it wasn't the value for women?
I don't think it was always just the money when it came to black men, though. Because I think it came down to like your.
And I think like one of y'all said like the protection part that did play bigger of a role back in the day.
Yeah, it wasn't always just the money, but you know, this remind me of like what we come down to is the communication piece, though. About like it's black men not being like the reason they listen to us is because we don't really know how to talk to them. That come down. You remember back in high school, game was a big thing. Mm-hmm. You remember how you used to have game to pull a woman.
My nigga Charleston White be killing them fresh and fit niggas off that shit.
You used to have to have game to holler at a woman. You could have been the richest motherfucker in school, but you ain't had no game. You wasn't getting no like thing. Yeah. And even in real life, game like how you talk to them, how you communicate, how you build rapport. Game. A lot of people don't have game, and that's why you run into these issues. But it comes down to just. And game work in business, being able to close deals, negotiate, all of that shit matter. But like a lot of people don't really understand that shit. Motherfuckers just want to say hey and just pull a woman just based on hey, I'm 6'6", I'm big, I'm tall, But like when you get in real work, you can't just pull women just off of like all of that shit. You gotta have some kind of game, and I think that's the big key. Especially when I say we got men don't know how to talk to women.
Yeah, shout out to Charles and White. That was his prognosis on the manosphere shit in general. The fact that he said most of the guys are now trying to bully women with like the things that they quote unquote say that they have instead of actually being able to talk to them.
No game.
And I was like, that's not a fair because also let's be realistic. Like a lot of like tropes that you hear. If we get into like our stereotypic what's homie name that we watched on the pre-show, Blanche or something like that. The stereotypical black man as painted in general has been like quote unquote the Tyrone, the ain't shit, whatever.
No game having motherfucker.
Well, no, not that. It's the nigga that got game, but not the other side of it.
Oh no!
Like we've never
have game and nothing else.
Yeah, like a nigga that's a smooth talker, but doesn't specifically have like all the other shit to it. But not saying like this is like this crazy thing to like ring true, but like that's a trope in general for a reason. In which I would imagine there's never been. I don't know of the time in which it's been known as black men was making an extraordinary amount of money. Like they were high earners. They was like these guys that was going crazy. And I don't know of that time. Like it's always been some level of a partnership, or we was like, damn, shorty holding it down. It's been one of those two.
Big Rell, what's up?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I said everything I had to say.
And this is also why I would like for Rell to put his questions into the chat early.
For what?
This nigga came up with the stats.
I ain't come up with no stats. What stat did
I say?
say?
Your whole thing was
all I
said. Your group chat said I'm gonna change mine. That's the last shit I read.
Rell,
the stats.
You came with like, so you actually had a good question, and you had like your statistics behind it. Like that's how you presented the question. Like you talked about how women earn more. You talked about how like tradition. Like
I felt like you talk about I didn't present any statistics. Okay, I got.
No,
you.
I'm saying you did. What?
Holy shit! You didn't present your question in the group chat.
Oh no, of course, I told y'all I wasn't gonna put it in there.
You was holding out on us.
Yeah, I'll be all right. And we can unpack it live time. This was great.
Hey man, hey, we still did what it had to do though.
Y'all niggas still ain't saying shit. Y'all niggas still didn't answer my question. I just let y'all go ahead and go off.
It like 4
I let y'all just go off.
You should put it in early.
Nobody in here addressed what I
answered your question like
you
4 or 5
you agreed
times.
with the first part of it and then went and talked about whatever you wanted to talk about. I don't feel like I don't feel like. As a matter of fact, I didn't even pose a question.
Oh my god!
So what did you want us to answer?
No, I wanted to see if honestly it was really just you. I wanted to see if you agreed with the fact that pretty much that the reason why the disconnect. But you said no. You said you think it's just communication.
I think it's
you think it's just that men in general don't know how to talk to women. Which I mean that's both sides.
That's what I said.
I mean that's the both.
But also for me.
But I mean that's.
But also for me too, like I didn't grow
it's
up
like
in
the blame shit. Like it's like, is it okay? So in my opinion, it's like okay. Instead of us talking about women, we literally just made it about men.
But I will say
the whole conversation.
So what did you want to talk about? What like what
Fuck
about
it,
women?
it's over with.
What about
the show's over?
What hang up did you have about?
I don't have a hang up.
But what I would say is this, right? I didn't grow up in a
Get
traditional two-parent household.
Black women what you want to say.
I love them all, bro.
I would say for myself, personally speaking, because I can only speak on my personal experience, right? I didn't grow up in a traditional two-parent household where my dad was actually in the house, right? My dad was in prison the first 7 years of my life. However, when my dad got out, him and my mom always had a partnership, not together, like romantically together, but they always had mutual respect for one another. You respect me, you respect your dad, vice versa. And I got in trouble with both of them. My mom never talked bad about my dad or painted him in a negative light to me in any way possible growing up.
That's dope.
So for me, it was always, hey, respect your dad. You're going to respect your mom. What we say is we said it together, not him saying it. And then you come back and tell me something different. It's no, we are in this together. We are raising you. And that's what it was.
And do you see that amongst your counterparts as the norm?
Hold on, let me see. For the ones who have active dads, yes. But you also, but I'm going to say this because like you have some dads who just aren't there because they're in prison or their dad might have passed. So for those, it's like one girl in particular. I'm not going to act like it's a whole bunch of my friends. It's one girl in particular that talked to me crazy. Why? I have no idea. She's had a stepdad in her life for like the past, I don't know, 20 years. But for whatever reason, she talked to me crazy. Couldn't tell you why. But for my other friends, I don't see that as a norm in like their relationships or their dealing with men. I don't see that. I see it in one
honestly,
person. That's all I can say.
I don't know a man that say this old lady ain't talk to him crazy.
Man, that's
I'm
like
a
this.
man that old lady know.
It might just be
Are you saying
perception
on
though
a
too.
consistent basis? Or are you talking about just
Yeah, I'm talking about if you. Well, I mean,
It might
we
just
can
be
talk about this on
perception though.
another
Like
pod. I'll
talk
make
to
it
you
a question.
crazy.
I'll
Like,
make it a question for the next pod.
but I'm saying talk to you crazy. Like she might say something and I might not think it's crazy, but somebody else might think.
No, I'm just talking about in general. What I'm talking about in general. Just when as a man, when you address a concern or you attempt to address a concern, you're usually met with defensiveness and anger and usually that's based on the dudes that I talk to on a regular basis.
So that's a communication.
Tell them niggas get them better partners.
Like
there's also like if we make it fair, right? There are also a bunch of women that don't know how to communicate and are also not good partners. Don't know how to understand and get critiqued and shit like that. No. But
the whole question was about women. We talked
no,
about men. The whole question about
no.
Now
But
you're going to
see
double
again,
back and talk about women.
A bunch of men.
Yeah, but I think you kind of I got you, but I think you kind of miss it. But my thing is that like if that is your shorty, you gotta vet better. And like to me, like I'm a guy, so more times than not, the advice that I give is going to be for men.
For men.
In which like there's niggas that be wild and there's females that be wild, and I'd be remiss to pretend like females don't be wilding. But if shorty is wild and she showed you early,
and
you just decided to stay with her, she might have had good pussy, she might have like been like whatever the shit was that you fuck with, you might have been at the age you thought crazy was cool and shit like that. But she showed you. Homegirl in that first thing during the pre-show, she showed him beforehand. That wasn't the first, second, third, or 10th time.
Oh, no,
yeah, and that's my thing is that yes, them women gonna be out there. Nigga, choose better though. And I tell women the same thing. If your nigga is doing X, Y, and Z, shorty, choose better. It just is what it is.
That's a good point to leave it at.
Agreed.
I think this was a great show. I like this one. We had some realizations, some nuances.
Yeah.
I am your host, Johnny P. Follow us on IG at D2B Fair Show. Follow us on Facebook at D2B Fair Show. TikTok, D2B Fair Show. Follow us on YouTube at D2B Fair Show. Check us out pre-show every Sunday, 1 p.m. I'm your host, Johnny P.
Oh, yeah, Rell.
It's Q.
And we out.